Abby, thank you for joining us on Being Black in Britain.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, I'm very excited to just share with our audience a little bit about who you are, what you do, why do you do it, and looking at some of the things that have shaped the person that you are today and some of the decisions you've made, particularly occupationally, just life-wise. Your why is what I want to explore.
Right.
So before we get started, can I ask you just to introduce yourself? Who are you and what do you do? Why do you do it?
Okay. Thanks for inviting me. My name is Abimbola, but I go by Abby sometimes. Well, yeah. I'm a doctor. Currently, I graduated in 2020.
Okay.
And I've worked for 2 years and currently locuming.
Okay. And when you say doctor, is that just a generalist doctor or do you specialise in anything?
Generalist, I've not specialised yet.
Okay.
That's a future problem.
Okay, yeah. We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Exactly.
So why did you choose to step into this particular profession?
So growing up, I always loved science and I love people. So I just thought medicine was something that marries both together nicely. So I decided to go for it. And then here I am.
Okay. Honest question though, Abby. Did you choose to be a doctor or were there any cultural expectations imposed on you that led you in that direction? Be honest.
Yeah, not necessarily pressured because the rest of my siblings are doing nothing related to medicine at all.
Okay.
But my dad's a pharmacist and my mum's a nurse. So I grew up around medicine. So I was kind of introduced to that very early on.
Okay, the reason I ask you, we know how it is, how, in our culture, there are so many people or parents, not my mum and dad, thanks mum and dad for giving me the freedom of choice, but many parents did sort of view certain professions as more legitimate.
Yeah.
My daughter is a doctor.
Engineer,
my
lawyer.
son is an engineer. My daughter is a lawyer. And whereas other occupations were deemed just not it.
Yeah.
That's why I ask. But yeah, I just wondered if any of those kind of cultural attitudes towards certain professions at the time shaped your decision making. But
probably subconsciously, but not like you have to do this.
Yeah. So, okay, that's exciting. And how has that been since 2020 practicing? What has your experience been like? Is it the hospitals that you're functioning?
Yeah, so when I graduated, it was during the pandemic.
Okay.
So I started doing the very, very thick of COVID.
Just thrown in the deep end.
In the deep end. And that
just swim, don't drown.
Yeah. It was a lot to take in. Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah.
Do you think there were any points in time that you thought, why did I do it? I want to leave, get me out of here, just because of everything that was going on at the time? Because that was a lot to join any profession in that time period.
Absolutely. But I actually did enjoy going to work because I'm not someone that could work from home or I like to be around people. So it was nice going to work and seeing colleagues and stuff. But the actual nitty-gritty of people dying and not having visitors to come and see them and the volume of people dying is even people that have been working for 20, 30 years said that's something they've never seen before. So that was a lot. And then as a junior, you're the person making that phone call to the family saying, oh, unfortunately.
Yeah. How did you personally process that? Because in 28 years, Abby, I have never personally witnessed a death, like a personal death.
Remember?
How did you... Have we had this conversation, haven't we?
No, because when we went to a friend's baby shower, you're like, oh, do you see death in hospital?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course I do.
Because this is just so
really
normal.
Yeah.
Go on.
Unfortunately, the way... This is going to the kind of stuff I want to do. The way we talk about death in the community, it's not something people do. And lots of people, I think back in the day at your age, you would have seen or witnessed someone dying.
Yeah.
But it's a testimony to the advancement of science that people are living longer and in generally good health. But when people die, unfortunately, that's usually in hospital, which is not very good.
Yeah.
I want to die at home.
Yeah. Do you think that would have ever discouraged you from staying in the profession then? Or do you think, as you've said, that conversation of how it's viewed and seen in communities, is that something that maybe encourages you to stay in that space?
Yeah, definitely. I enjoyed this conversation. I enjoyed helping people through that process, actually. Yeah. So
But how do you process it? Because you have to be the one to call families to say sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
But you're repeatedly seeing and witnessing loss of life.
Yeah. I think for me, I don't know if I've processed it enough, to be honest. I have to be quite truthful about it. But I think it makes me more grateful for life and actually acknowledge how the brevity of life, that life is really short. So it makes me more aware of my own mortality.
Yeah.
It brings that to my forefront.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point there. So being aware of your own mortality, how has doctoring maybe shaped the way that you either treat yourself, engage with yourself, and just manage your own health and well-being?
Oh, I take that seriously. I go to the gym quite frequently, try to eat well. And then even all of that, you see people that do all these things that science says we should do to live longer, and then unfortunately they die very early on from whatever.
There's so much that can't be helped though, isn't it? There's so many variables that
some
are yet
things
beyond
like
our
genes
control.
that you can't change.
Yeah.
But there's some things you can do to help yourself.
Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. And in terms of doctoring, just work-life balance, how do you manage the demands of work and your personal life just all together? Is that something that you feel like you are able to manage with the job, or do you feel like this particular occupation presents some challenges towards
definitely
that?
Loads of challenges. I don't think right now I'm managing it quite well, but when I first started I didn't, because I'm out of training at the moment. But in training you've got going to work, doing 48 hours a week, you've got exams to do, and I'm just I actually don't know how people with children do this. For me it's just I just have to get on with it. I'll eat noodles. I don't have any other external demands. And my family are quite supportive, so
Okay.
But I can see how for some people that might be difficult because you've got other challenges like parenting.
Yeah. And where do you see yourself then? So we talked about potentially specialising, but where do you see the direction of your career?
So I wanted to do palliative care, which is basically when people are getting towards the end of their lives, or through whether sickness, illness, like cancer, or so some people go to hospice, some people get input from the palliative care team to help them manage end of life symptoms.
Right. Okay. And why that particular choice? That's quite heavy, that.
Yeah, I think it's looking at people holistically. Unfortunately, we already do that at the end, and I think it would be beneficial to start from the very beginning. And then when people start dying, that's when people start thinking, do you have any faith? And the spirituality aspect of the being then comes to the forefront, whereas I think that should be from the very beginning.
So are you a person of faith then?
Yes.
Okay. And how does that help you in the profession, do you think, especially seeing death, seeing people towards the end of life? How does you as a person of faith, engage with that?
I think because as I'm a Christian, and because of that, I believe that we will be united with Christ when we pass away and when we die. And I think when you look at how brief life is, you kind of make choices that aligns with what your purpose, which is being a Christian, is. And
that's an interesting one. I think I agree with that in terms of just having faith in something gives a sense of hope in what happens next.
Yeah.
And I find that there's a lot of sort of psychology study as well around how people have coped or recovered from sickness and disease where there has been faith or there's something to believe in, hope. Whereas there are those who, psychology studies show us how much that those that don't have a faith system or something to believe in often deteriorate quicker or struggle to recover, where there isn't something there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when people go through not just end of life diseases, just life happening in general, it can either make you bitter or transform you.
Yeah.
So and I think if you have hope in something bigger than yourself, then it's more transformative.
That's it. What about social support? How do you think social support has helped some of the patients you've seen? I'm thinking during COVID, where people did not have access to social support, family members couldn't come in, visitors couldn't come in, and people were sat there for prolonged periods in the hospital without access to social support.
That was difficult. That was probably the most difficult aspect of the career so far. But it's nothing like we've dealt with before in our lifetime. So people were just doing what they needed to do. But it's very unfortunate to die alone without your family and friends nearby. Saying that, there are some people that actually don't have, which is really sad, don't have any support system. Like when you come into hospital, like, is there anyone at home? They're like, no, I'm just by myself. Any friends to call? No, just me. And I'm just there like, oh, that's so sad.
So how do you think that impacts a patient though in comparison to those that are like completely surrounded by loved ones?
I think people that are surrounded by loved ones do better. I don't have the data with me to tell you that, and I think there's cultural differences as well. Sometimes when you get like the South Asian patient, you see their family like requesting, "Oh, can we please stay overnight?" I'm like, no, that's not the trust policy. And they just want to be around them and surrounded by them. But ultimately, it depends what the patient wants. Some people like to not want to be seen in that vulnerable state. And you get some people like, I don't want my children to see me like this.
Wow,
and some people are like, oh yeah, I have like people around. So it depends on the person.
Indeed. Now, going forward then, yes, you've said thinking of specialising in that particular area. You did speak about a need for a certain conversation to be had in community as to how death is seen or how death is talked about. Could you kind of expand on that? And is that within the Black community specifically? Is that within your local community where you're practicing?
So like going back 100 years, people would like die, like the average life expectancy was like 45 or even less than that. And people were very used to that idea of like people dying frequently. But I think not just in the Black community, I think generally people just see that as a private event that happens and we keep quiet about it. I think in the Black community, we keep quiet about challenges like we people have like diagnosis of cancer. It's just something that is kept within the family. No outsiders. And or some people just, the sad part is people like praying it away and not going to doctors. That's really unfortunate. I think there should be conversation about not just dying, but like health-wise in general. But I think young people are doing really good. Like they've been very health conscious.
I think it's definitely generational because as you say, I feel like with education, with the advancement of technology, with the increase in access of information that we have, we're definitely doing better at engaging in those conversations. Sometimes I feel like the challenge is bridging the communication gap between generations. Because like you said, I think sometimes there's a bit of a challenge when you step into faith communities where on the one hand it's like you need to go get checked. These symptoms are screaming at us. Don't ignore it. And someone's like, God is good all the time.
All the time God is good.
And it's like, no, that's red flag. And it's the question is, how do you bridge that gap in particularly in faith communities, not even just Black communities or Asian communities, but in faith communities where you're struggling with that tension between, well, we believe in God, are you telling me that God's not good enough? And it's also what you're almost doing is challenging a whole faith system to tell someone to trust in the healthcare system.
It's very strange because people always think there's this divide between science and faith. I don't think there's any divide or anything at all. I think that's just man-made. I think God has given us the gift and the skills to develop things like drugs and whatnot. So why don't we use it? I don't think there's any disagreement between or any conflict between science and faith at all.
I agree. No, I agree with that. It's the question of how to communicate so that it's received.
I think our generations are doing quite well. In fact, I think we've gone the opposite way around. I see people on Instagram talking about miscarriages, infertility, their women's health issues, and they're being advocate for themselves and fellow people, which I think is great. I think what we need to obviously that needs to be done, and people need to do that properly in the right context. I think it's more our parents' generation where it's more like we don't talk, and I think maybe it's an element of shame, or I really don't know what it is, to be fair.
I think there's an African pride about it. I'm not gonna lie, it's just like they just don't need to see our weakness, don't need to see our imperfections, just like this like facade thing. And we have a family member on my in-laws side where there's somebody that had cancerous symptoms for years and was told, go get checked, ignored it, only to find that they're advanced. And it's just like, if you had really just gone and got checked and got the help, we wouldn't be like scrapping right now trying to find, can we find a way to help this person? And it's just, it's sad that it's just, the extent to which maybe it's just a lack of education.
And it's really strange because most of them are nurses and like healthcare professionals as well. But I think it's more education and telling them like, look, there's no conflict between science, and you can have treatment, and that
still
treatment
be a person of faith.
Really,
like,
really provided by God. And you can engage in that.
Like it doesn't make you less a person of faith to access that help. No, very interesting. Whole piece of work to be done around that, if I'm honest with you.
Definitely.
But so I guess moving on outside of work, then Abby, like, is doctoring your life?
Absolutely not. I don't even talk about work. Like, I try not to engage in work conversation outside of work. But unfortunately, I'm surrounded by other medics. But I do other stuff outside of work.
I just think that the work-life balance thing is so important to me. And, you know, I come from a teaching background where, like, it's almost like that's not allowed. It doesn't like work-life balance doesn't exist to the extent of teachers striking, because teachers were just like, nah, like the maths is not making sense when you're demanding these hours and this is what the money's saying at the end of the month. Do you know what I mean? Did you strike? When the doctors went to strike?
Yes, I did.
Okay, why? Because I personally thought the doctors get paid enough.
Well, we don't get paid enough at all.
Okay, go on.
I think basically it's for people are, you're not paying market rate for the work people are doing. And we're like, okay, that's fine. But that leads to consequences like there's gaps in the rota, and people are not being seen. Like 2 weeks wait target for when GP refers to secondary care is longer. People are just like, actually, the sacrifice they have to put for this, like all the long hours, all the studying, it's just, the math is no longer mathematician. So I'm going to vote with my feet or move abroad. So that's what we are seeing.
Okay.
So I think it's important that you pay people properly for the work they're doing.
And why abroad? What's happening abroad that is better than, you know, doctoring in the UK?
They're paying them well.
Right, okay.
They're paying them 3 times more, 4 times more. So let's say if you're moving to Australia and New Zealand, and they're well paid with good work-life balance.
Okay.
And it's not just pay. I think the culture is also can be toxic.
Right.
Yeah. There's a recent article that came out yesterday about the proportion of women in surgery that were sexually abused by their by their colleagues.
Right.
Yeah, so, and also bullying. There's loads that's going on that people are actually, I don't want to work in this environment. And good for them.
Yeah. Is that to do with the sort of like high stress working environment that might be impacting quality of sort of working experience, do you think?
Yeah, I think the population is aging. People are demanding more. And it's just, the system is just not beautiful what it wants to do. And the government is like, actually, we don't want to fund this. It's a political choice that they choose not to fund. Did you see like a post-COVID sort of like aftermath in terms of sort of the environment, the climate in the hospitals and whatnot, whether it is relationships with colleagues, whether it is sort of just the culture in the hospitals altogether or anything? I think people are burnt out. I was speaking to an ICU nurse recently, and she was like literally 50% of my colleagues have quit.
Wow.
And and there's a really specialist nurse.
50%?
Yeah, they're like, they've either gone into the community or like done something completely different. And then, so I think people are burnt out from COVID, and then you're there's a backlog of things that needs to be addressed because people staff for COVID.
Right.
And then people are just like not well paid. Everyone is stressed. And it's just, the culture's not very great at the moment.
So what you're saying is if we can put some money into the healthcare system, maybe we can start to solve some of those issues.
Money talks.
Potentially. Indeed. Okay. Now, looking back in your journey, we'll wrap this up in just a moment, but I just want to kind of continue to explore sort of factors that have maybe led you to this point in time. What would you say are maybe aspects of your lived experience that have shaped the direction of your career, just your life journey? I don't know, were you born in the UK?
No,
I was born in Zimbabwe, came when I was 2. But what about yourself? Where were you born?
I was born in Nigeria, but we moved like when I was little.
Okay. Yeah. And how do you think? What was that like? Yeah, what was that like? That's interesting.
Were
you like primary school?
Yeah.
Secondary. Yeah. What was that like? Because you remember Nigeria then, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Like I have zero recollection of being in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
But my excuse is I was 2, so.
No, but I don't think it makes that much difference, to be fair. I think you embed yourself into culture really quickly as young people, and it's just it's just the way it is.
But do you not feel like you've got like a point of comparison because, that's like, you've seen what the economy is like, what the structure is like. I guess you're a child.
Young, and also like the last time I went back to Nigeria was like 14. Maybe if I, not 14, like 2014. But maybe if I was going regularly, I would have like, more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I don't know anything about Nigerian politics.
No, we're not getting into that right now.
I just overhear things.
Okay, so thinking then sort of born in Nigeria, moving to the UK, and were you in the north?
Yeah.
I met you when you were in like Leeds.
Yeah. So we moved to Nottingham.
Okay.
Nottingham's home.
Okay, Nottingham.
Even though I have to remind people all the time, I think I think you're from London.
I don't even know like what accent is a Nottingham accent. But
they don't. Well, they do, but I don't know.
Because I would have thought your accent was like a bit further down south of something.
Like they're black people all over the country.
Yeah. Okay. And so looking at that then, so you kind of navigating the world, moving around, what would you say have been sort of key moments or key aspects of your journey then that may have influenced, shaped any of your decision making, whether it was experiences in school, whether it was the sort of the transitional experience? Are there any key moments that you think you could point to and say, okay, that may be shaped, that may be influenced?
I'm trying to think. Leeds is a big part of my life because when I look back now, I look at all my friends.
Why were you in Leeds?
Studying in Leeds.
Okay.
So I applied to be fair, I didn't want to be in Leeds. I applied to Southampton, Belfast, and everywhere far away from home. But I'm so glad that I ended up in Leeds.
Okay, so you were in Leeds for your degree?
Yeah, I was there.
And does that mean you practiced also in Leeds?
No, so when I finished, it was during COVID, I decided to move back home.
Okay.
Yeah.
But do you think that shapes your work experience at all, or just your worldview in that you've kind of seen so much? Like I've not travelled that much. I've only ever lived in Leeds, then moved to Liverpool for uni, stayed in Liverpool.
Yeah, I think Leeds shaped me because I think I became a proper Christian when I went to Leeds.
What do you mean proper Christian?
Not like I wasn't a Christian before, but it was something I made a conscious decision to be about. Like not just like, because when you go to uni, you can be like, I don't want to go to church anymore. Like no one would know. Who's gonna know? But then when I started, I think medicine really, really was the springboard to making an intellectual decision about faith. Because then I was like, this is too complex for it to just be random. There must be a designer and intellectual design behind this. This is just too complex for me. Like all the DNA stuff and all these things that we have to learn about. It just doesn't make sense that it's just random. So that's when I was like, that's it don't know that's a creator God that's designed me to be here.
You know, I find that really interesting because I was speaking to an academic recently, and she was talking about the flip side to exactly what you've just said, where there's like a collective of black teachers or black women teachers of faith that actually struggle to teach biology or struggle to teach some elements of science because they felt that it was like a contentious subject area in view of their faith. So for you to like say the complete opposite to actually find that as a reason to be a person of faith. I find that really interesting.
Yeah, I think the problem is people read the Bible wrong because they think that it's literal. And I'm like, no, the Bible is not a scientific book. It's just to give you an idea and about God and to show you who God is. But actually, you can see God in everything else, in creation, in nature, like being outdoors. And when I think about the complexity of our body and how it works, it doesn't make any other sense that there is a God.
Now we're delving into some Christian apologetics here, Abby.
Sorry, let's go back.
But yeah, that's really interesting. It's really interesting because, as I say, like there's just two different schools of thought there where for some people engaging with the sciences is every reason not to engage with faith because like that doesn't make sense. Whereas you get the second school of thought where it's like, well, this is every reason. So that's really interesting, really interesting. Okay, now wrapping this up, my final
you said
question
that 5 minutes ago.
I did.
Our time is fast spent.
Now we're wrapping this up. If you were to kind of look back on your journey and look to a point in time where you could have advised younger Abimbola, encouraged younger Abimbola, what point in time would you go back to and what would you advise yourself, do you think?
Oh, that's a difficult one. Younger Abimbola, what would I say to her? Like, the world is a oyster. Like, she should go for it.
Okay. Yeah. Why did you have, like, confidence issues? Did you ever, like, feel like you couldn't do something or that you weren't able to do so or weren't good enough for something?
I think if anyone said no, that would be lying. Yes, I do.
Okay.
Everyone has insecurities.
Okay.
And I do. I think believing in yourself is quite difficult, like not knowing, like, how do I say this? Yeah, sometimes you just, maybe I'm not good enough for this. And even now, like there's some things I'm like, maybe I'm just not meant to be doing this. This is too difficult. This is too, but I don't think it actually ever stops.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, but you grow, the more you grow, the more you're like, actually, I've done, the more experience you have, that I've done this before, you've got a point of reference, like I went through a difficult time and I can, I feel
like
survive.
two things there though, because I think, okay, there's a dispositional element in that. I do feel like some people have like a personality type that allows them to be a bit more assertive and open to living life on the edge and exploring more risk-taking behaviours, whatnot. Whereas you get the others that are a bit more sort of imposter syndrome driven, where it's, don't think I can, don't think I'm allowed, don't think I'm good enough. But I feel like one thing I found that over time experience definitely helped with that. Like you said, like I've been here before, done that before, like,
and I didn't die.
I didn't die. Like I can. For me, the winning question for me was, what's the worst case scenario? Like if it's like going for like a new job or going for a new opportunity, it's like the worst thing that's going to happen is I'll say no. Yeah. But at least I tried.
You tried, yeah. I think having a supportive system around, like if I'm home, like, at least I can move back home.
That's it. Mum's there.
There's love and coffee at home.
That's it.
Yeah. So I think because my parents are really supportive and my siblings as well, like even if you try something or you go for a job or you leave your job, like there's a support system to catch you.
There is.
Unfortunately, that's not available to everyone, so people find it more difficult to like I'm gonna quit my job and travel, or like I'm gonna quit my job and try something different when you don't, and especially now that I don't have any children, so like what's the worst that can happen? I'll drink Gary for 4 days.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's
but
it,
I think once you have like people depending on you and financially, that makes it a bit more tricky.
Absolutely. Now, social support is absolutely necessary. But yeah, no, we're going to call it a day. Abby, thank you so much for sharing.
That was so short, but I actually enjoyed it. Yeah, I thought it was going to go on for ages.
To be fair, yeah, we've done quite good for time.
Okay.
But thank you very much.
No, thank you. I hope that was really useful, and I hope I didn't ramble. I felt like I talked really quickly, but maybe they can talk.
Maybe it's because I
slow it down to 0.75.
I don't think. Could you hear? Was she audible, Jacob? She wasn't too fast, was she? I thought you were all right.
Thank you so much for having me.
I don't know why you were nervous though.
I don't know.
I feel like right to the end you were still nervous.
Yeah.
Stop it. Stop all that.
Thank you. Maybe we'll do a part 2.
Yeah.